Everyone on the station knew one thing about Yira's people. They feared loud sounds, not dislike. Not discomfort. Fear.Yira was no different. Her species evolved under calm skies and gentle winds. Their music was slow and soft, made to heal the mind. Sharp noise caused pain. Strong vibrations could overwhelm their nervous system. Because of that, Yira was assigned as a listener, not a fighter, not a soldier. She studied other cultures from a safe distance. Humans confused her from the start. They spoke loudly. They laughed loudly. They argued loudly. And worst of all, they made noise for fun. That was how Yira first heard it. The sound came through the metal walls of the human habitat ring. It was not like alarms or machines. It was alive, rough, angry. It slammed into the station like a storm that refused to pass. Her hearing. Membranes tightened in panic. She pressed her hands to her head and crouched instinctively. This is madness, she whispered to herself. A passing engineer looked at her with concern. You okay? What is that sound? Yira asked, her voice shaking. Is someone in danger? The human blinked, then smiled. Oh, that? Just music. Music. The word did not match the pain buzzing in her ears. Later that cycle, she found the source. A large room filled with humans. Lights were dim. Strange instruments screamed and growled. A human stood at the center holding a stringed object, striking it with violent joy. Others beat drums like they were at war with them. And the humans listening? They smiled. They moved. Some even closed their eyes like they were at peace. Yira stood frozen at the doorway, her body trembling. This will destroy their hearing, she thought. This will damage their minds. Why are they not running? Hey, she flinched. A human male stood beside her. Dark hair, calm eyes. No fear on his face. You lost? He asked. That sound, Yira said carefully. It is harmful. He laughed softly. Yeah, that's what my mom says too. She did not understand the joke. My name is Alex, he continued. First time hearing hard rock? Hard rock? Yira repeated. The words felt heavy. Alex nodded toward the room. You don't have to stay. It's not for everyone. Yira should have left. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat to silence and safety. But something else pulled at her. Curiosity. Double quotes. How? She asked. Can you endure this? Alex thought for a moment. Because sometimes, he said slowly, quiet hurts more. That answer struck her deeper than the sound. I will observe, Yira said. Briefly, Alex stepped aside. Your funeral. The moment she crossed the threshold, the sound crashed over her fully. Her breath caught. Her balance wavered. The vibrations went through her bones. Pain flared behind her eyes. She gasped and raised her hands to cover her ears. Too loud. Too fast. Too much. She was about to turn back. Then she noticed something strange. Her heartbeat was matching the rhythm, not racing. Not failing. Matching. The music was loud, yes, but it was also ordered. Beneath the chaos was a steady pulse, strong, unyielding, like a heart that refused to stop beating no matter how badly it was wounded. Yira slowly lowered her hands. The pain did not vanish, but it changed. It became heat in her chest, pressure behind her eyes, a tight feeling that was not fear but release. She watched a human near the front. His eyes were closed. Tears ran down his face, yet he was smiling. Another human shouted words into the air, angry words. Broken words, but there was honesty in them. This is not random. Yira realized this is emotion. Her people hid pain behind silence. Humans threw it into sound and dared the universe to listen. Alex watched her carefully. Still standing? Yira swallowed hard. This sound should hurt me, she said. He nodded. Does it? She hesitated. Yes, she admitted. Then after a pause, she added softly, "But I do not want it to stop." Alex smiled, not proudly, not teasingly, but like someone who understood. "That's hard rock," he said, and for the first time in her life, Yira wondered if pain could be something more than weakness. The next day, Yira could not stop thinking about it. The sound of the music haunted her ears, even in silence. She tried to meditate, tried to hear the gentle wind of her homeworld in her memory, but the rhythm of the drums and the sharp crash of guitars kept intruding. It was maddening and yet fascinating. Curiosity gnawed at her. How could a sound that should have caused pain make the humans so alive? Why did their bodies sway? Why did their faces glow? Why did they smile while their ears were assaulted? By the time the human day cycle ended, she found herself walking toward the dome again. Her hands shook slightly. Every fiber of her being screamed to retreat. Every instinct told her that entering that room could break her, maybe even permanently damage her delicate ears. But another voice, quieter and unfamiliar, whispered, "You must understand this." Alex noticed her before she reached the entrance. "You're back," he said, half laughing. "Didn't scare you off?" Yira paused. "The sound," she said cautiously, "it intrigues me. I do not understand it, but I cannot leave it behind." He nodded like he had expected this. "Then come. I'll show you how we survive it." Yira stepped inside. The music was roaring already, louder than yesterday. A drum hit so hard it felt like the floor beneath her chest might collapse. She flinched instinctively. Her hands shot to her ears. She closed her eyes, pain, sharp, biting, unbearable. But then she noticed the patterns again. The drums were not random. They were in conversation with the guitars, arguing, pleading, demanding attention. The bass rumbled under her feet like the heartbeat of the entire room. And in the middle, the vocals' human voices, raw and unpolished, carried stories of sadness, anger, and joy. Her eyes opened slowly. She watched Alex at the center, holding his instrument like a sword, a shield, and a companion all at once. He was sweating, his muscles straining, his face radiant with focus and emotion. And the humans around him, they were alive. Not perfect, not flawless, but real. Yura's fear began to shift, that it became heat in her chest. A tightness that was strange, new, uncomfortable, and yet thrilling. She realized that pain could be shared, that chaos could have order, and that intensity could be beautiful. She lowered her hands from her ears, letting the sound wash over her completely. The vibrations shook her body. Her vision blurred with tears, not from fear, but from the overwhelming power of the music. One of the younger humans danced near her, spinning with abandon. The air was full of sweat and energy and sound, yet he was smiling with pure joy. Yura could not move like that, not yet, but she felt the urge. Her body hummed in response to the rhythm. Her heart no longer matched her species' cautious, slow pulse. It raced like the drums themselves. Alex noticed. "Feeling it?" he asked, not mockingly, but gently. Yura nodded, though her voice was lost. Her throat felt tight, almost burning from the intensity of emotion. "Yes," she finally managed. I feel it. But it hurts." "Good," Alex said softly, almost like a secret. "If it didn't hurt, you wouldn't know it's real." Real, that word settled deep in Yura's chest. She had spent her life avoiding danger, avoiding pain, avoiding any experience that might leave scars. But here, she understood that pain could be proof of life, proof of survival, proof that emotion existed in ways words could never explain. She watched the humans around her again. Their cries, their laughter, their rawness, they were not fragile. They were strong. Even as the sound cut through their bodies, even as sweat stung their eyes and throats, they persisted. They endured, and they throve. A single thought struck her with clarity. I want to endure too, not to imitate, not to conquer, but to understand. To feel the fire that burned behind these sounds and not run away. For the first time, Yura did not retreat from fear. She leaned into it. The music crashed over her, shaking her, pushing her, igniting something primal deep within. Pain was no longer an enemy. It was a guide. And in that moment, Yura realized that humans were not weak. They were not reckless. They were something else entirely. Something powerful. Something unyielding. Something. Human. As the last chords of the song faded into a trembling silence, Yura exhaled slowly. Her ears rang, her chest burned, and her eyes shone. She smiled quietly. To herself, "I am ready," she whispered. And in that decision, she took her first true step into a world that both terrified and thrilled her, a world of sound, of chaos, and of unstoppable life. The next cycle. Yura could not stop thinking about the humans. She returned to her quarters. But silence greeted her like a weight pressing down on her chest. No birds. No wind. No music. Just empty air that made her ears ache for the chaos she had once feared. The memory of the sound, the screaming guitars, the pounding drums, the raw human voices pushed against her mind. She realized something she had never felt before. The absence of noise could hurt as much as the presence of pain. She replayed every detail in her mind. The way the humans' bodies moved with the music. The way they endured the sound and smiled through it. The sweat and tears and laughter mingled into one living, breathing thing. And she had stood among them, shaking, frightened, and yet drawn to it. Her teacher's voice echoed in her memory. Pain is weakness. Avoid it. Silence is safety. Yura shook her head. The humans had shown her another truth. Pain was not always weakness. Silence was not always safety. That evening, Alex appeared at her door. "Hey," he said softly, holding a small device that hummed faintly. "Thought you might want to hear a bit before practice starts." Yura hesitated. You can leave at any time," he interrupted with a smile. "I promise. No judgment." She nodded slowly and followed him. Inside the dome, the humans were gathered again, but this time something was different. They moved slower, careful, almost mournful. Their instruments were silent except for the quiet strum of a bass, soft at first, building gradually. Yura stepped in, and the sound rose around her, gentle yet relentless. Even at low volume, it shook her. Her body reacted before her mind could process. The vibrations traveled along her spine and through her ears. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "You don't have to stay long," Alex whispered, watching her closely. Yura nodded, though she knew she could not leave. Something inside her had awakened. The humans were no longer strangers. They were a force of life she could feel deep in her chest. As the music grew louder, Yura noticed the faces of the humans around her. Some had tears. Some laughed. Some shouted words she could not understand. Yet all of them were connected by one thing, the music itself. The sound carried emotion, anger, joy, sorrow, hope. Every note was a story, and the humans were telling it together. Yura's hands went to her ears instinctively. The pain came, sharp and hot, but she refused to retreat. Instead, she leaned into it, letting the vibrations course through her. Her body felt alive in a way she had never known. Her species prized calm, but this was living. The intensity was terrifying, but she wanted more. Alex noticed her courage. "Feeling it now?" he asked. Yura swallowed hard. "Yes," she admitted, voice trembling. "It hurts, but I cannot leave it." "That's the trick," he said, smiling. "It has to hurt. Otherwise, you're not listening. You're not feeling." The words struck her. She realized that the humans were not reckless. They did not create chaos for no reason. Every scream, every drumbeat, Every vibrating note was proof that they refused to hide from life. They refused to dull their senses, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt, tears streamed down Yura's face. Not from fear, not from pain, but from awe. She had always been cautious, careful, measured. She had believed that restraint was the pinnacle of intelligence. And yet here, surrounded by humans, she felt her mind expand with every vibration. She realized she had been living small, keeping herself safe from the intensity of the universe. And now, she wanted to experience it all. The music grew louder, almost overwhelming, and Yura felt herself trembling. She wanted to run. Part of her screamed that her ears would break, that her body would fail, that she could not survive this. But another part, a part she had never known existed, urged her to stay, to endure, to join. She did not move at first, but gradually her feet began to sway. Slowly, carefully, like learning to walk on new terrain. Then her hands lifted, her body bending with the rhythm. She was dancing, awkwardly at first, unsure, but moving with the music. A human near her laughed and nodded, encouraging her. "That's it, feel it." Yura closed her eyes. Every nerve screamed in protest, but she did not stop. She let the pain transform into energy, the chaos into clarity. Her heart raced with the beat, and for the first time, she felt truly alive, not as an observer, but as a participant in something far bigger than herself. The song ended, leaving a ringing silence behind. Yura fell to her knees, gasping. Her ears ached. Her chest burned. Her mind buzzed. But she smiled. Alex crouched beside her, hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "I did not know I could," Yura whispered, awe in her voice. "I thought I would break. I thought I would hate it." "You survived," Alex said simply. "And you felt more alive than you ever have." Yura nodded, chest heaving. She realized the truth. Humans did not fear intensity. They embraced it. They suffered through it, danced through it, and came out stronger. For the first time, she wondered if her people had been missing something. Something vital. Something necessary. And she vowed silently that she would never run from the fire again. Yura returned to the dome the following cycle, her heart heavy with both anticipation and fear. The humans had sensed something different in her the last time, and Alex met her at the entrance with that same quiet smile that always made her feel seen. "Ready?" he asked. Yura nodded, though she was not entirely sure what she was ready for. Her ears still rang from the last session, and part of her warned her to stay back, to avoid the overwhelming power of the music. Yet another part, a part that had grown stronger with each visit, urged her to step forward. To not just hear the music, but to feel it. To live it. Inside, the dome pulsed with life. Humans moved like they were connected to a force she had never understood, their instruments alive with sound. This time, it was different. There was no practice, no rehearsal, just pure, raw energy. It was a final gathering before their temporary relocation, a final chance to celebrate, to scream, to be alive. The music began slowly, a low hum from the bass, barely noticeable at first. Yura felt the vibrations through the floor and into her feet, into her bones. It was gentle, almost comforting. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting herself be carried by the rhythm. Her hands no longer covered her ears. She wanted every note to reach her. Then the drums hit, strong, relentless, each beat a hammer against her chest. The guitars screamed, high and piercing, yet she no longer flinched. Instead, she felt the sound as a force that moved through her, shaking her, pushing her, pulling something deep inside her that she had never known existed. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm now. Each drum, each crash, each note connected her to the humans surrounding her. Their faces were alive with emotion. Some laughed, some shouted words that she did not understand. Yet the meaning was clear. Every sound carried emotion. Every movement was honesty. Alex played at the center, eyes closed, sweat running down his face. He was completely immersed, as if the music was not just coming from him, but from the collective pulse of everyone in the room. Yira watched him, and suddenly, she realized something she had never thought possible. Humans were not fragile. They were fire. They survived pain, embraced it, and used it to grow stronger. The music swelled, louder, more chaotic. Yira felt the vibrations shake her chest, her ears screaming, yet her mind was calm. She had surrendered completely. Her fear had melted into exhilaration. The pain no longer terrified her. It was proof that she was alive, proof that she was part of this moment. She began to move. Slowly at first, uncertainly, her body swaying with the rhythm. Then faster. Her arms lifted. Her feet stepped in time. She was dancing, fully, clumsily, joyfully. A human nearby cheered, laughing, and Yira realized that she had never felt such freedom. Freedom not just from fear, but from control, from caution, from the limits she had always placed on herself. Tears ran down her face, hot and unrelenting. They were not tears of pain. They were tears of awe, of wonder, of connection. She was sharing in something larger than herself, a collective heartbeat. A shared force of life that pulsed through the room like an unstoppable storm. The song reached its peak. Guitars screaming, drums hammering, voices shouting in harmony and chaos. Yira shouted too, joining the humans, letting her voice become part of the music. Every note, every beat, every scream carried her fear, her hesitation, her doubts, and transformed them into something beautiful, something powerful. Then it ended. The sudden silence felt like the world itself had paused. Her ears rang, her body trembled, but she smiled. The ache of pain was replaced by the warmth of triumph, of understanding, of joy. She had survived the storm. She had embraced it. She had become part of it. Alex came to her side, hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "You made it," he said softly, eyes shining. Yira nodded, words failing her. She could only breathe deeply, letting the calm after the storm fill her senses. I understand now," she whispered. "It is not noise. It is life." Alex smiled. "Exactly. That's why humans do it. That's why we scream and dance and endure. It reminds us that we are alive, that we can feel, that we can survive." Yira looked around at the humans, at their sweat, their laughter, their tears, their raw, unpolished energy. She realized that this fearless embrace of life, even when it hurt, was something her people had never truly understood. And she vowed silently, with every fiber of her being, that she would carry this lesson home. That she would never fear intensity again. That she would remember the fire, the chaos, and the unstoppable force of human emotion. For in that moment, Yira knew something simple, yet profound. Life was not meant to be quiet. Life was meant to be felt loudly, recklessly, completely. And she would never forget the last song, after the humans left. The dome felt empty. Yira walked through the silent hallways, the absence of sound pressing against her chest. The instruments sat quietly in their stands, gathering dust. The lights were dim, and the air smelled faintly of sweat and metal. The echoes of drums, guitars, and human voices still rang in her memory, sharper than any recorded sound. It was a hollow ache, but also a warmth, a reminder of what she had felt, what she had. For days, she could do nothing but replay the experience over and over in her mind. She remembered the vibration of the bass through her bones, the soaring scream of the guitars, the raw honesty of every human voice. And she realized something vital. The humans had not just made music. They had made life audible. Yira began to experiment quietly. She gathered instruments from the dome and arranged them in the center, trying to replicate the sound she had experienced. At first, it was chaotic, unstructured, and painful. Her ears screamed, and her body shook. But she persisted. Every strike of a drum, every strum of a string, every vocal hum carried intention. She was learning to feel the fire that humans had taught her, to transform chaos into something alive. Her species observed her with curiosity and caution. "Why make such harsh sounds?" one elder asked. "It will harm you." Yura looked at them, eyes bright with conviction. "It is not harmful," she said softly, though her own ears still throbbed. "It is strength. It is emotion made visible. It is proof that we can survive our own intensity." Some of the younger ones were fascinated. They gathered around her, hesitant but intrigued. Yura guided them, showing them how to play, how to endure, how to feel. Slowly, they learned to embrace the sound, to move with it, to surrender and yet remain strong. The pain became power. The chaos became clarity. Word spread. Soon, others from her species, who had once avoided loud or extreme sensations, began to come. They joined in, experimenting, making mistakes, discovering joy. Yura watched them, heart swelling. The same humans who had terrified her ears were now teaching her people something far greater: how to face the universe without fear. She sent messages to Alex whenever she could. "Your humans have changed us," she wrote one cycle. "I do not know how to thank you. You gave us fire." The reply came quickly: "You are fire too, Yura. Don't let it fade." Yura smiled, folding the message into her thoughts like a talisman. She practiced daily, her muscles growing stronger, her ears adapting. She felt alive in ways she had never imagined. She could endure the pounding drums and screaming guitars, feel the vibrations like the pulse of the galaxy itself. Pain was no longer an enemy. Silence was no longer safe. Then she took a bold step. She introduced the humans' music to the council. The elders gathered, suspicious and wary, expecting chaos. Yura played the sound loud, unfiltered. The vibrations shook the chamber. The elders winced. The young ones covered their ears. But slowly, as the patterns emerged, as the rhythm settled into their bodies, something remarkable happened. They began to move. Small at first, feet tapping, heads nodding, hands fluttering, but movement, nonetheless. Yura's chest swelled. She realized what she had done. She had taken a human gift, a human fire, and made it her own. Her people could feel it now, understand it, embrace it. The music carried more than sound. It carried courage, strength, the ability to endure and thrive. She continued to teach. The younger generation experimented with instruments, creating variations, exploring sounds she had never imagined. The dome became alive again, pulsing with noise and life. The echo of human influence had taken root in a way that could not be undone. Yura sometimes closed her eyes and imagined the humans among them, smiling at what they had inspired. And she understood why humans were feared across the stars, not because of their technology or their armies, but because of something far greater: their courage to feel, to endure, to embrace life, loud and untamed, without apology. Her people began to call the music the echoes. It was more than a tribute, it was a declaration. Even in silence, the memory of the sound lived in every heartbeat, every nerve, every step. The humans had taught them to survive intensity, to face fear, and to feel truly. And Yura, standing in the center of the dome, surrounded by young learners moving and singing and laughing, felt something she had never felt before: pride. Pride not in herself alone, but in her people, in their newfound courage, in their willingness to endure and grow. For the first time in her life, Yura understood the full meaning of being alive, not just to exist, but to feel, to endure, to dance in the fire, and to carry its warmth across the stars. Years passed, and Yura's world had changed. The dome that had once been silent was now alive with sound. Younglings ran through the corridors, guitars slung over their shoulders, drums pounding, voices screaming in joy and frustration alike. The elders, initially skeptical, now nodded quietly as the music pulsed through their halls. The humans' influence had grown into something uniquely her people's own. When news came that the humans would return, excitement and nervousness filled the air. Yira could hardly contain her anticipation. She remembered the first time she had entered the dome, trembling at the roar of guitars and drums. She remembered the fear, the pain, the strange thrill of surrendering to it. Now she felt a quiet confidence. Her people had learned. She had learned. They could meet the humans not as timid observers, but as equals in understanding the fire of music. The day arrived. Ships descended, lights blinking, engines humming through the atmosphere. Yira stood at the entrance, her heart pounding. She watched as humans stepped onto the platform, older now, wiser, yet unmistakably alive in their energy. Alex was among them. He spotted Yira immediately and waved, his grin as warm as it had been the first day she dared to enter the dome. "You did it," he said as he approached. "They've changed everything here." Yira smiled, tears threatening to fall. "We did it," she corrected. "We learned from you. And from ourselves." Inside the dome, the humans paused, unsure at first. The air was thick with anticipation. And then they noticed the younglings, drums beating in perfect chaos, guitars wailing in unrestrained joy, voices raised and free. The humans watched, stunned, as the aliens moved to the music. Some dancing clumsily, some swaying with rhythm. All alive. Alex laughed softly, turning to Yira. "I wasn't sure you'd embrace it fully," he admitted. Yira shook her head. "I have learned that life is too short to fear noise, too short to fear fire." The humans joined in. Guitars strummed, drums pounded, and voices merged with those of the aliens. Together, they created a new sound, a fusion of human chaos and alien precision. Yira felt the vibrations course through her body, her ears ringing, her chest pounding, her heart soaring. She was not just observing this time. She was living it fully. She had become part of the music. The elders watched quietly from the sidelines, some trembling at the intensity. Others closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them. Yira knew that many of them still feared it, but the young generation had embraced it completely. She could see the spark of curiosity, the thrill of danger, the courage to endure and enjoy. That spark would grow, just as it had within her. Hours passed like minutes. Sweat dripped from brows, voices cracked and hoarse. Fingers ached from strumming and drumming. Yet no one left. No one stopped. The music was a river, pulling them along, carrying away fear and doubt. Yira felt every beat, every note, every vibration, and she realized that she had never been more alive. At one point, Alex raised his hands, and the crowd quieted for a moment. He looked at Yira. "You've changed this place," he said softly. "Not just with music, but with courage, with understanding." Yira nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sound. "You showed me how to feel fear and still move forward, how to endure pain and still find joy, how to live fully." The music surged again, louder than before, a celebration of life and survival. Aliens and humans together, moving, screaming, laughing, crying. It was imperfect, chaotic, and breathtakingly beautiful. Yira closed her eyes and let herself be carried, letting every vibration, every note, every scream fill her completely. And in that moment, she understood why humans had been feared across the stars, not for their strength or weapons, but for their ability to feel deeply, to endure, to turn pain into something beautiful, and to inspire others to do the same. When the final chord rang out, leaving a ringing silence in its wake, Yira opened her eyes. Sweat and tears streaked her face. Her ears throbbed. Her chest ached. And yet, she was smiling. Not just from joy, but from understanding. She had found a new way to live, to teach, to endure. Alex stepped beside her and whispered, "You've done something amazing here. Yira, you've carried our fire and made it yours." She nodded, looking at the crowd of aliens and humans alike, their faces glowing with exhaustion and exhilaration. "We all did," she said softly. "Together." And for the first time in her life, Yura realized that the music, the pain, and the joy were not just sounds. They were proof. Proof of life. Proof of courage. Proof that even across stars and species, one could learn to endure, to feel, and to live fully. Years later, Yura stood on the balcony of the dome, looking out at the stars. Her world had changed. What had once been quiet and careful now pulsed with life, music, and energy. Guitars strummed in the distance, drums beat in rhythm, and voices rose in song. The humans had returned, but their influence had already taken root, and now, her people had made it their own. Yura remembered the first time she had stepped into that dome. Trembling, her ears screaming, her heart pounding with fear. She had come to study humans, thinking she would be a careful observer, but instead, she had discovered something far greater. Humans did not fear intensity. They did not shy away from pain. They embraced it, turned it into music, into joy, into